The Palm Beach morning sun streamed through hurricane-proof windows into the waterfront mansion's master bedroom, casting an almost theatrical light on what should have been an ordinary Tuesday in Florida's most exclusive zip code. Instead, the golden rays illuminated an abrupt end to one of America's most enviable marriages, where wealth, beauty, and success had seemingly created a fortress against life's uglier realities. Amelia Parker stood frozen in the doorway, still clutching her cleaning caddy, her eyes fixed on the incongruous sight of Alexander Reynolds, tech mogul, philanthropist, and fixture of Palm Beach society, sprawled face down on the Italian marble floor beside the bed, a pool of darkening blood haloing his head like some macabre Renaissance painting. "Mrs. Reynolds?" Amelia called out, her voice barely audible even to herself, the vacuum cleaner abandoned in the hallway behind her. The mansion's perfect silence was broken only by the distant rhythm of waves against the private beach and the soft hum of the central air conditioning that kept the Florida heat at bay. Alexander Reynolds, 52, lay motionless in silk pajama bottoms, his torso bare, an antique letter opener protruding from between his shoulder blades at a precise angle that suggested purpose rather than chance. The ornate sterling silver handle, a wedding gift from his wife, Olivia, caught the sunlight, sending prism-like reflections dancing across the cream-colored walls. The 911 dispatcher's voice seemed to come from another dimension as Amelia reported what she had found, her Honduran accent thickening with shock. "Mr. Reynolds is dead. There's blood. Someone killed him." She struggled to provide the address, 275 Ocean Boulevard, though she had worked at the property every Tuesday and Friday for 7 years. As she spoke, her gaze drifted to the details her mind had initially blocked: the shattered crystal tumbler near Alexander's outstretched hand, the bedsheets torn from the mattress as if someone had been dragged from sleep, and most tellingly, a framed photograph of Alexander and Olivia smashed on the floor, the glass spider-webbed around what appeared to be a perfect lipstick print in Olivia's signature shade. Outside, sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder as emergency responders navigated the palm-lined streets of the exclusive enclave. But it was the absence that immediately struck Detective James Cortez when he arrived 17 minutes later. Olivia Reynolds, 41, celebrated interior designer and social fixture, was nowhere to be found. Her Mercedes convertible missing from the four-car garage, her phone going straight to voicemail, her closest friends claiming no knowledge of her whereabouts. On the bathroom counter, her wedding and engagement rings sat in a small porcelain dish, carefully placed beside a handwritten note that read simply, "Now you know how it feels to be betrayed." Detective Elena Vega had investigated hundreds of homicides in her 15 years with Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office, but something about the Reynolds case set her teeth on edge from the moment she ducked under the crime scene tape. Perhaps it was the pristine order of the mansion, 10,000 square feet of perfection where even violent death seemed an aesthetic inconvenience rather than a tragedy. Or perhaps it was the immediate pressure she felt as her captain whispered, "The mayor's already called twice," while nodding toward the gathered news vans accumulating outside the property's ornate gates. Alexander Reynolds hadn't just been wealthy, he'd been connected, major political donor, technological innovator, and confidant to governors and senators. As Vega pulled booties over her shoes in the marble foyer, she exchanged knowing glances with her partner, Detective James Cortez. "This one's going straight to CNN," she murmured, surveying the immaculate space now crowded with evidence technicians photographing blood spatter patterns. Single stab wound penetrating the left lung, angled upward through the third and fourth ribs, reported medical examiner Dr. Anita Shah, kneeling beside the body. From lividity and body temperature, I'd estimate time of death between midnight and 3 a.m. The weapon remained in place, causing a seal that slowed external bleeding. He would have suffocated on his own blood rather than bled out. A slower death, perhaps 3 to 5 minutes of consciousness. Dr. Shah gestured to subtle abrasions on Alexander's wrists. These suggest restraint before death. Someone held him down, likely kneeling on his back given the bruising pattern forming here. This wasn't improvised. It required control and determination. The most immediate evidence came from the mansion's sophisticated security system, which had been deactivated at 11:47 p.m. the previous night using Olivia Reynolds' personal code, then reactivated at 3:22 a.m. Security camera footage showed Alexander arriving home alone at 10:15 p.m., entering through the garage in his Aston Martin. No footage showed Olivia returning home, though her car had been parked in the garage when Alexander arrived, suggesting she was already there. Most tellingly, cameras captured Olivia's Mercedes exiting the property at 3:28 a.m., driving toward Highway A1A, the coastal route that provided multiple escape options both north and south. Her face was clearly visible, her expression unnervingly calm as she glanced directly at the security camera, almost as if ensuring she would be seen. By mid-afternoon, forensic technicians had collected preliminary evidence that shaped the investigation's direction. Alexander's phone contained dozens of text exchanges with a contact identified only as ES, arranging meetings at the Breakers Hotel over the past 6 months. His laptop revealed a folder of intimate photographs of a woman approximately 20 years younger than Olivia, later identified as Elizabeth Sinclair, 25, his executive assistant. Most significantly, investigators discovered a freshly drafted email to the Reynolds estate attorney, saved but not sent, outlining Alexander's intention to divorce Olivia, citing irreconcilable differences, and requesting information about protecting his estimated $340 million fortune. Interviews with the household staff revealed critical timeline elements. The Reynolds' personal chef had prepared dinner for 2 the previous evening, setting it out before leaving at 7:30 p.m. She noted that Olivia had requested Alexander's favorite meal, beef Wellington with truffle mashed potatoes, despite their recently strained relationship. Mrs. Reynolds seemed different, the chef told Detective Cortez. Very calm, almost too calm. She kept checking her phone, and when I mentioned Mr. Reynolds was running late, she said, "He'll be here. He has no choice tonight." The property's security guard reported seeing Olivia swimming laps in their infinity pool at approximately 9 p.m., describing her as intensely focused, like she was burning off nervous energy. The investigation's first significant breakthrough came from Olivia's abandoned phone, discovered in a resort trash can in Key Largo, approximately 2 hours south of Palm Beach. The device had been wiped, but cloud backups revealed text messages with her closest friend, fashion designer Rebecca Chin, discussing Alexander's affair. "I have the proof now," Olivia had written 3 days before the murder. "Those photos were taken in our bed. He's not even attempting to hide it anymore." Most disturbing was her final message to Rebecca the afternoon before Alexander's death. "By this time tomorrow, everything will be different. I've made my decision, and it's the only path forward that lets me keep my dignity." Financial investigation revealed Olivia had made careful preparations in the weeks leading up to Alexander's murder. She had liquidated her personal investment account worth approximately $3.2 million, transferring the funds to a recently established account in the Cayman Islands. She had also updated her passport, visited a plastic surgeon specializing in minor facial adjustments, and purchased property in Costa Rica through an anonymous LLC. These methodical arrangements, combined with her calculated departure, supported the theory that Olivia had carefully premeditated not just Alexander's murder but her subsequent disappearance. The final piece of preliminary evidence emerged when investigators discovered a hidden compartment in Olivia's dressing room closet. Inside was a manila envelope containing surveillance photographs of Alexander and Elizabeth together at various locations, including the Reynolds beach house in Nantucket. The photos appeared professionally taken, suggesting Olivia had hired a private investigator. Also in the envelope was a handwritten list titled Options, which included entries such as divorce, lose everything, ignore, lose self-respect, and eliminate problem, risk but clean break. This discovery, combined with the premeditated financial maneuvers and the carefully staged crime scene, led Detective Vega to issue an international arrest warrant for Olivia Reynolds within 72 hours of Alexander's murder, charging her with first-degree homicide. Alexander and Olivia Reynolds' love story had been chronicled in Architectural Digest's Power Couples, issued just 8 months before his death. They had met 16 years earlier at a charity gala in New York, where Olivia Pierce, then 25 and a promising interior designer with a growing reputation for innovative spaces, had been immediately captivated by Alexander Reynolds, 36, whose software company was revolutionizing financial technology. Their courtship unfolded against the backdrop of Manhattan high society. Openings at the Met, weekends in the Hamptons, skiing trips to Aspen. Alexander proposed 6 months later with a 7-carat emerald-cut diamond during a private dinner at Persay, and they were married within the year at St. Patrick's Cathedral. The ceremony featured in Vogue as a testament to tech wealth's arrival in old money circles. The early years of their marriage represented what appeared to be a genuine partnership, both professionally and emotionally. Alexander provided the technological vision and industry connections that helped Olivia's design firm expand to offices in New York, Miami, and Los Angeles, while Olivia created the impeccable social environment and aesthetic sophistication that transformed Alexander from merely wealthy to truly influential. Together, they became fixtures in philanthropy, co-chairing benefits for the Metropolitan Museum of Art and establishing the Reynolds Foundation focused on educational technology for underprivileged communities. They purchased their Palm Beach estate in 2015 after Alexander sold his company to Google for $1.2 billion, and Olivia transformed the dated Mediterranean-style mansion into a showcase of contemporary design that architectural publications heralded as redefining coastal luxury. They complemented each other perfectly, observed Teresa Van Tor, former editor of Palm Beach Social and longtime observer of the island's elite. Alexander had the technical genius and business acumen, but it was Olivia who crafted their public narrative and social position. She wasn't just decorative, she took her position as his wife seriously, understood it as a career requiring strategy and constant performance. This mutual enhancement distinguished the Reynolds from many power couples in their circle, where accomplished men often married women who served primarily as passive trophies. For nearly 12 years, they operated as a seamless unit at the intersection of technology, design, philanthropy, and high society. The first fracture in their seemingly perfect union appeared in 2019, when Olivia experienced a devastating miscarriage in her second trimester, a daughter they had already named Charlotte. After years of fertility treatments, this final loss ended their hopes for biological children, a blow that affected them differently. Olivia retreated into profound grief, temporarily stepping back from her design firm and social obligations, while Alexander processed his emotions by throwing himself even more intensely into work, specifically a new venture capital fund focused on biomedical technology. He couldn't sit with sadness, their couple's therapist later told investigators. His response to pain was always action, progress, solving the next problem. Her need to fully experience the grief created the first real disconnection in their relationship. When Olivia eventually returned to public life 6 months later, subtle shifts in their dynamic had already taken root. Alexander had hired Elizabeth Sinclair as his executive assistant during Olivia's absence, a Stanford MBA with a background in biotech and a former college volleyball player whose physical presence contrasted sharply with Olivia's more delicate elegance. Initially, Olivia welcomed Elizabeth, appreciating how efficiently she managed Alexander's increasingly complex schedule. However, within months, she noticed concerning patterns, Elizabeth accompanying Alexander on business trips that previously would have included Olivia, late-night strategy sessions at their home that continued after Olivia went to bed, an increasing physical comfort between them that manifested in casual touches and private jokes. Rather than confronting Alexander directly, Olivia employed the strategic patience that had served her throughout her career and social ascent. She increased her own professional commitments, accepting high-profile design projects in London and Paris that required extended travel. She renovated their Nantucket property into a showcase that was featured in Elle Decor, garnering attention independent of her connection to Alexander. Most significantly, she established deeper friendships with other powerful women in Palm Beach society, creating a support network separate from the couples-based social life they had previously maintained. These maneuvers represented both a retreat from the growing distance in her marriage and a fortification against potential future changes. Olivia's suspicions about Alexander's fidelity crystallized in March 2023, when she returned early from a client meeting in Miami to find Alexander and Elizabeth swimming naked in their pool. The confrontation that followed was remarkably controlled, rather than the explosive reaction many might have expected, Olivia maintained her composure, simply asking Alexander to have Elizabeth leave before they discussed the matter. According to texts Olivia sent Rebecca Chen that night, Alexander neither denied the affair nor apologized for it. "He told me I'd been emotionally absent since the miscarriage, that our marriage had become a business arrangement," Olivia wrote. "When I asked how long it had been going on, he said, 'Does it matter? We've been over for years, we just haven't admitted it.'" This conversation marked a critical turning point in Olivia's psychological state. Friends reported a significant shift in her demeanor in the months that followed. A new coldness beneath her social polish, an intensity in her exercise regimen, and most notably, a preoccupation with maintaining perfect control over her environment and appearance. "It was like watching someone prepare for battle," Rebecca Chen later testified. She became almost mechanical in her precision, tracking Alexander's schedule, documenting every inconsistency in his stories, collecting evidence of the affair while simultaneously playing the role of devoted wife in public. This period of surveillance and evidence gathering revealed Olivia's remarkable capacity for compartmentalization, hosting charity galas and dinner parties where she and Alexander performed perfect couplehood while she methodically built a case documenting his betrayal. The situation escalated in June 2023, when Olivia hired private investigator Michael Dawson to document the full extent of Alexander's relationship with Elizabeth. Over 6 weeks, Dawson provided comprehensive evidence, photographs of them together at the Breakers and in their Nantucket home, financial records showing Alexander had purchased a $1.2 million condo in Elizabeth's name, and most damaging, recordings of Alexander discussing his plans to leave Olivia after completing a major acquisition deal that would significantly increase his net worth. "He's timing it to minimize financial exposure," Olivia told Rebecca in a conversation recorded on her friend's phone. "20 years of my life, my career sublimated to his, my body destroyed trying to give him children, and he's calculating the cheapest way to discard me." The final catalyst came in early July 2023, just 2 weeks before Alexander's death, when Olivia discovered she had been excluded from a gala honoring Alexander's philanthropic work, an event she had helped organize for months. The invitation, addressed only to Alexander with Elizabeth listed as his +1, was delivered to their home while he was traveling. This public humiliation, designed to establish Elizabeth as his new partner before the divorce was finalized, represented not just personal betrayal but professional and social erasure. "He's not just leaving me," Olivia told Rebecca during a lunch captured by security cameras at the Colony Hotel. "He's replacing me with a younger version and attempting to erase my contributions to everything we built. This isn't about love, it's about eliminating me from the narrative entirely." This conversation revealed Olivia's growing conviction that Alexander's betrayal extended beyond their marriage into an attempt to systematically diminish her life's work and identity. For a woman whose sense of self was inextricably linked to her carefully constructed public persona, this represented an existential threat more profound than mere infidelity. "I won't be erased," she told Rebecca in their final documented conversation before the murder. "I won't be discarded like last season's collection. He underestimates me if he thinks I'll simply step aside and disappear." This statement, recorded on Rebecca's phone and later provided to investigators, would become central to the prosecution's case, establishing Olivia's motive and premeditation. July 24, 2023, 7:15 a.m., Alexander Reynolds began his last day alive with his usual morning routine, a 5-mile run along the private beachfront, tracked by his Apple Watch, followed by protein smoothie and cold plunge in the pool's attached spa. Security footage showed him moving through the house with practiced efficiency, wireless earbuds delivering his customary business podcasts. Olivia was already awake, dressed in Lululemon athleisure wear, reviewing design plans for a Miami penthouse project with unnerving focus. Their interaction, captured by the kitchen's security camera, lasted exactly 42 seconds, confirmation about dinner plans and a brief discussion about an upcoming charity board meeting. No external signs indicated the violent culmination awaiting their marriage later that night. 9:30 a.m., as Alexander left for his downtown West Palm Beach office, Olivia's day took an unusual turn. Rather than heading to her design studio, she visited 3 separate ATMs across Palm Beach County, withdrawing maximum daily limits from accounts Alexander rarely monitored. At 10:45 a.m., security cameras captured her entering Cartier on Worth Avenue, where she had her wedding set cleaned and inspected, making casual conversation with the jeweler about an upcoming anniversary trip. She seemed remarkably poised, the sales associate later testified. She mentioned looking forward to a second honeymoon, asking my opinion on Santorini versus the Maldives. 1:15 p.m., Alexander's calendar showed a 2-hour block marked simply ES meeting at the Breakers Hotel. Hotel records later confirmed he and Elizabeth occupied a bungalow suite during this time frame, room service delivering champagne and lunch for 2. Meanwhile, Olivia met with her attorney under the guise of discussing a new commercial design contract. However, bank records later revealed she had withdrawn $50,000 in cashier's checks during this appointment, and phone records showed she placed calls to contacts in both Costa Rica and the Cayman Islands from the attorney's office landline, presumably to avoid tracking. 3:45 p.m., Olivia returned home and accessed their shared safe hidden behind a painting in Alexander's study, a space she rarely entered despite their supposedly equal partnership. Security footage captured her removing several documents and a small velvet pouch containing family jewelry passed down from her grandmother. She then moved to the kitchen, where cameras recorded her speaking with their chef about the evening's dinner preparations, specifically requesting Alexander's favorite dishes and selecting a 2009 Chateau Margaux, a vintage they had discovered during their honeymoon in France. This careful attention to Alexander's preferences, juxtaposed with her earlier financial maneuvers, illustrated the remarkable compartmentalization that would later fascinate psychological experts analyzing the case. 5:30 p.m. Footage from Alexander's office building showed Elizabeth entering his private office carrying an overnight bag, remaining for approximately 45 minutes before departing visibly upset. Her later testimony revealed this meeting as their final confrontation, where Alexander had reluctantly ended their relationship. He said things were complicated with Olivia, that she knew about us but they were working through it for the sake of their public image, Elizabeth told investigators. He promised we would revisit our relationship after some financial matters were settled. I knew he was lying, but I didn't realize he was trying to protect me by creating distance. 7:22 p.m. Alexander arrived home, his Aston Martin pulling into the garage beside Olivia's Mercedes. Security footage showed Olivia greeting him in the foyer with a glass of champagne, wearing a dress he had previously complimented, a calculated detail that would later be cited as evidence of premeditation. Their conversation appeared relaxed, even intimate, as they moved to the terrace overlooking the Atlantic. "You seem different tonight," Alexander remarked, accepting the champagne. "Good different, like before things got complicated." "I've been doing a lot of thinking," Olivia replied, her voice measured. "About us, about the future. I think it's time we had an honest conversation." This exchange, captured by exterior cameras, struck investigators with its performative quality, Olivia orchestrating a reconciliation scene that contrasted sharply with her documented preparations for escape. The couple dined on the terrace, security footage showing them in seemingly deep conversation, Olivia refilling Alexander's wine glass repeatedly while barely touching her own. 9:45 p.m. After dinner, they moved to the living room where Olivia suggested a nightcap. She disappeared briefly to the kitchen, returning with Alexander's preferred whiskey in a crystal tumbler. Within 30 minutes, Alexander's movements became visibly less coordinated, his speech slurring slightly in their continued conversation. Toxicology would later reveal a significant concentration of alprazolam, Xanax, in his system, which, combined with the alcohol he had consumed, would have caused substantial sedation. At 10:53 p.m., camera footage showed Olivia helping an unsteady Alexander up the stairs toward their bedroom, her arm around his waist in what appeared to be a supportive embrace that investigators would later recharacterize as control. 11:30 p.m. The final verifiable timeline before the security system's deactivation begins here. Bedroom cameras captured Alexander struggling to undress, eventually collapsing onto the bed still partially clothed. Olivia moved with methodical precision, removing his shoes and loosening his belt while he drifted in and out of consciousness. At 11:42 p.m., she left the bedroom, returning several minutes later with something concealed in her hand, presumably the letter opener, though the specific object remained just outside the camera's frame. At 11:47 p.m., she accessed the security system's main panel in Alexander's study, systematically disabling cameras throughout the house. What transpired in the next 3.5 hours was reconstructed through forensic evidence and Olivia's eventual testimony. Based on blood spatter patterns, partial fingerprints, and Alexander's defensive wounds, investigators determined that Olivia had initiated an argument once the cameras were disabled, strategically provoking Alexander despite his sedated state. The confrontation escalated physically, with evidence suggesting she presented him with photos of his infidelity, inciting him to grab her despite his impairment. This physical contact, later documented in bruises on her arms, provided the foundation for her initial claim of self-defense. The actual attack occurred after Alexander had partially succumbed to the drugs in his system. Forensic evidence indicated she had helped him to the floor, ostensibly to assist him as he became ill from the combination of substances, then straddled his back while driving the letter opener between his shoulder blades with remarkable precision. The angle and force required specific positioning and determination, not the frantic stabbing of panic but the calculated execution of a plan. Most telling was the lack of cast-off blood on the ceiling or walls, suggesting she had maintained control throughout the attack, carefully managing the scene to minimize evidence. 2:45 a.m. Based on water usage logs and subsequent luminol testing, Olivia showered methodically after the murder, changing into travel clothes she had pre-positioned in her dressing room. She collected her packed overnight bag, Alexander's laptop, and selected financial documents. Before departing, she placed the message using Alexander's blood on the broken photograph, arranged her wedding rings in the bathroom, and deliberately disheveled the room to suggest a violent confrontation. These staging elements, particularly the message about betrayal, were later interpreted by behavioral analysts as Olivia's attempt to control the narrative of their marriage's end, ensuring she departed not as the discarded wife but as the righteous avenger. 3:22 a.m. Olivia reactivated the security system using the master code, exempting only the garage sensors to allow her departure. 6 minutes later, cameras captured her Mercedes exiting the property, beginning the carefully planned escape route that would occupy investigators for weeks to come. By the time Amelia Parker discovered Alexander's body at 8:17 a.m., Olivia Reynolds had already crossed state lines, initiating the first phase of a disappearance planned with the same meticulous attention to detail that had characterized her entire life, from interior design to homicide. Olivia Reynolds evaded capture for 27 days, an impressive duration given the international resources deployed to locate her. The investigation revealed she had implemented her escape with the same precise planning she brought to her design projects. From Palm Beach, she had driven to Fort Lauderdale, abandoning her Mercedes in a long-term airport parking facility before boarding a commercial flight to Mexico City using her legitimate passport. Mexican surveillance cameras captured her entering a high-end salon where her distinctive blonde hair was cut and darkened, after which she effectively disappeared from official tracking. Border agencies eventually confirmed she had entered Costa Rica by private charter from a secondary Mexican airport, utilizing an alternate passport obtained through means investigators never fully uncovered. The Reynolds murder dominated media coverage, transforming from local society scandal to international obsession as details emerged about the couple's fractured relationship and Alexander's affair with Elizabeth Sinclair. Cable news networks assigned dedicated correspondents to the case. Morning shows featured panels analyzing security footage of the Reynolds' final evening together, and multiple podcasts launched series dedicated to examining the psychological dimensions of what journalists dubbed the designer's revenge. The case perfectly encapsulated contemporary anxieties about wealth, power, and gender, with public opinion dramatically split between those who viewed Olivia as a calculating killer and those who saw her as a victim of decades of psychological manipulation. Olivia's eventual apprehension occurred through a combination of technological surveillance and human error. On August 20, 2023, facial recognition software at a boutique resort in Santa Teresa, Costa Rica, flagged a guest checking in under the name Sofia Martinez, whose facial structure, despite significant weight loss and style changes, matched Olivia's parameters in Interpol's database. Costa Rican authorities, coordinating with the FBI, conducted surveillance for 48 hours to confirm her identity before executing an arrest at the beachfront property she had purchased through her anonymous LLC. When confronted, she reportedly displayed neither surprise nor resistance, simply stating, "I wondered how long I would have this view. It's really quite spectacular." The extradition process took 3 months, during which Olivia maintained selective silence, speaking only to her Costa Rican legal representatives about procedural matters while refusing to address the murder allegations directly. When she finally returned to Florida in November 2023, she entered the Palm Beach County Courthouse wearing a tailored navy suit, her once blonde hair now a rich brown cut in a severe bob. Media outlets noted she appeared remarkably composed, making deliberate eye contact with key figures in the courtroom while completely ignoring Elizabeth Sinclair, who sat in the gallery's third row, visibly distressed. The trial began in March 2024 after months of pretrial maneuvering, including unsuccessful attempts by the defense to suppress the security footage from the Reynolds mansion and the prosecution's successful motion to include evidence of Olivia's elaborate escape planning as indicator of premeditation. The prosecution, led by State Attorney Michelle Rodriguez, constructed a narrative of calculated murder motivated by jealousy, financial preservation, and revenge. They presented the methodical financial preparations, the staged reconciliation dinner, and the post-murder identity transformation as evidence of a killing orchestrated by a woman who chose murder over the humiliation of being publicly replaced. The defense strategy, led by celebrity attorney Thomas Harrington, made a surprising pivot from initial claims of self-defense to an argument based on extreme emotional distress and temporary insanity. Expert witnesses testified about narcissistic abuse in high-control relationships and identity annihilation in public divorces, framing Alexander's actions as a form of psychological torture designed to erase Olivia's sense of self. The breakthrough moment came when the defense produced emails from Alexander to his attorney discussing strategies to minimize Olivia's relevance in both their social circle and his professional narrative, language that resonated deeply with the predominantly female jury. When the verdict came after 11 days of deliberation, it represented the complexity of the case itself, guilty of second-degree murder rather than the first-degree charge sought by the prosecution. This finding indicated the jury accepted some elements of the emotional distress argument while rejecting claims of impulsive action. Judge Elena Vasquez, delivering her sentence in June 2024, addressed Olivia directly. The court acknowledges the profound psychological impact of betrayal and public humiliation you experienced. However, the methodical nature of your response demonstrates that this was not a crime of momentary passion. You had numerous options that didn't involve taking a human life. Olivia received a sentence of 25 years with possibility of parole after serving 20, a sentence that sparked immediate controversy for its perceived leniency relative to similar cases with less affluent defendants. The Reynolds case continues to fascinate the public through multiple documentaries, books, and a planned HBO limited series starring Nicole Kidman as Olivia. The legal, psychological, and sociological dimensions of the case have been analyzed extensively, with particular focus on the intersection of wealth, public image, and gender expectations in high-profile marriages. Most significant has been the emergence of what social psychologists now term the Olivia effect. Increased awareness of the psychological violence inherent in social and professional erasure, particularly for women whose identities have been subsumed into their partners' narratives. As criminologist Dr. Sarah Jenkins observed in her best-selling analysis of the case, Olivia Reynolds' story holds an uncomfortable mirror to societal expectations that women should gracefully accept replacement and erasure after devoting decades to building a man's success. Her methods were indefensible, but her refusal to disappear quietly continues to resonate with women navigating the collapse of identity-defining relationships.